Hello, Beast Tuna here. Today we're going to go through this Forbes article. I just want to apologize in advance for two things before we begin. Three things as I'm adjusting the mic now, but the two things I want to apologize for is one, the Berserk video is taking ages. I know I've been working my ass off. It's been my longest script so far, but I do hope you understand that I don't do YouTube as a full time job. I have a full time job, and YouTube is my hobby at the moment. I'm also a bit, I don't know if I'm sick or if it's just my asthma acting up, sensoku, as it's called in Japanese. But whichever it might be, I do hope you have understanding for that. Speaking of hobbies, today we're going to talk about gatekeeping. And I think one of the best ways to describe gatekeeping is when someone says, you aren't a true fan. You aren't a fan unless that people essentially try to keep others out of fandoms. And this time we have Ollie Barter here that are saying fans aren't gatekeeping anything. They're just wary of would-be dictators trying to take over their hobby. And with that title, we see that Ollie Barter covers gaming in Japan as well as pop culture, and one of those pop cultures must be light visual novels. I could even go as far as to say that this could be an isekai title about an otaku, and I envision that this otaku is obsessing about the hobby, right? He gets transported to the universe of that said hobby, and then he has to defend people in defend that hobby from changing in that world. But whatever, let's get on to the article. Little side note, just this picture makes me happy. Specifically this part. Jokes aside, like something about seeing just anime advertisement makes me happy because it's like when I live in Sweden, I never see that, but when I was in Japan, I saw that all the time, and it made me really happy. I don't know why; it's a strange phenomenon. Just like he says that one of the strangest phenomena that keeps on popping up these days is the inaccurate accusation that fans are somehow gatekeeping their hobbies. Firstly, this is actually impossible to do, and secondly, there is more going on here than first appears. And he goes into Merriam-Webster definition of gatekeeper and talks a bit about the backstory of how anime and hobby has been like how it's been practiced in the past, and essentially you could summarize it with this here. Unless there is someone physically limiting access to the host media, gatekeeping is not taking place. And to be honest, that is actually true. You can't really gatekeep people out of hobbies these days. It's very hard to do. Trust me, I've tried. Jokes aside, but it's very hard to do. But what people can do is keep them out of fandoms, and this is what it comes to now. So that was his first point. If you thought that was a bit controversial, well, so why are certain people claiming that fans are gatekeeping their hobbies? Well, this is a bit more involved, and it's not so much about the hobbies in question, but more about controlling various fandoms. Going back to my anime example, when I originally got into anime all those decades ago, the size of the international fandom was relatively small. These days, though, anime is a global pop culture phenomenon. And this following sentence here is something I want you to keep in mind. This means there's a lot of anime fans out there, and the fandom itself is consequentially influential in an industrial and cultural sense. Now, this is something that's very important to remember. If you can ever put a positive light on gatekeeping, it would be to maintain a show's purity for this reason. But let's continue on with the article. I'm sorry, as I said, I don't know if I'm sick or if it's just my asthma, whatever. So the accusation of gatekeeping are being used to leverage access to effectively run each fandom and acquire power as a result. This is why there's a great deal of pushback from fans on this. Not because they want to stop people from watching anime or enjoying other hobbies, but to make sure these hobbies remain open to all and not descend into some kind of dictatorship. And I would definitely not phrase it like this. I think, and this is something we need to understand about Ollie's article here, is that while he has a lot of good points, he also very clearly paints up the narrative of us versus them. I don't think that. I think, as I said previously, it's more about keeping fandoms pure. Sometimes it's like, you know what? No, your opinion here is not gonna bring this fandom into a better light. That's and when a majority of the fandom thinks that, that's when gatekeeping can really happen. But then also, as he says in the following sentences, the reality is that fans love having people they can talk to in depth about their hobby. This kind of involved and almost studied discussion of a hobby is actually what keeps various fandoms ticking along, together with fan contributed artistic expressions and stuff like that, I would say. This means it's not in the interest of fans to limit access to what they care about, and if people are genuinely curious about the hobby, the fans almost always tend to offer their help and insight. I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree. I have never encountered a fandom that I've tried to get into that has shunned me away. Okay, I have never encountered that. You might say, well, that's because you're a white man and women aren't allowed into gaming and stuff. No, 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 no. I have never encountered that, even when I've been anonymous, even when no one has known what gender I am, no one has known what sex I am, no one has known what race I am, no one has known anything about me but my username, Tuna Salad, which I would also argue is a bit of a gender neutral username, if that such a thing exists. My point is, whenever I've tried to get into a fandom, people haven't cared. People have been super happy, super supportive. They have really just helped me get whatever it was is I want. They've given it to me. Like if I'm looking for videos on how to play the game, they've given it to me. No question asked. But let's read the final sentence, and then we can actually start talking about this topic in more a broader sense. So, however, when you see someone online or even in the real world accuse a fan of gatekeeping, it's more likely that said accuser is not interested at all in that hobby and is actually a power hungry would be dictator that wants to rule said fandom with an iron fist. I don't think that's true as well. Like, I don't think there's. Once again, he kind of pictures this very malicious thing. I don't know. I don't like to think that people are malicious. Maybe I'm just the goody two shoes who think too well of other people. But I would rather see it that a lot of these people are just people that are, how should I say it? They're probably a bit narcissistic, maybe a bit autistic. They just don't understand, like, when they enter a fandom, they don't understand what goes on there, what people think. And a good example is, like, if we take the Evangelion fandom, like, I see people on the daily, even, especially during, like, when you release Star, but even, like, regularly, and even when it's, like, fan art that isn't say, like sexual, people will still come onto those and be like, Asuka is 14, how dare you? Asuka is 14. And it's like, yeah, we know she's 14, but if you, in case you haven't missed it, a point in Evangelion is also intimacy and sexual relationships. It's not just about the robots fighting monsters or angels as they're called. It's about more than that. And when I think back about it, I can only find like a few instances of gatekeeping, if I even would call it that I've actually seen myself. The first one I'm thinking of, and I don't even know if this is considered gatekeeping. It's I had a female friend. I like to play Magic the Gathering when I was younger. I still play Magic the Gathering sometimes. Another video for another day about Magic the Gathering. But she liked to play Magic as well, and I remember I invited her to play like in the store that was like close by, and she said no. She tried to be there, and it wasn't necessarily that was she was being shunned away. Quite the opposite, in fact. People were a bit too happy that she was there, and they were a bit creepy, so to say. And so she couldn't really be there. Now, if you would call that gatekeeping, I don't know. Like it's not intentional, at least. It's just people being creepy. Secondly, I'm thinking about whenever like someone says like you need to watch the intro of an anime show or you're not a true fan of that and stuff like that. But that's once again like I think a lot of times that's just jokes. Like people like in my yo-yo video for an example, when I say you can't start with Stone Ocean and I will find you if you do, like that's obviously a joke. But I think there's like this small percentage of people who take those jokes seriously, and those are the people that might be like gatekeepers. That yeah, whatever. Thirdly, we got like Gamergate, and I don't know, man. Like, sure, phone games, I guess, and especially today, phone games are real games. I wouldn't say anything else. But back in the day, when that was a thing, phone games were usually not really games. They were more like, well, there were games, obviously, but they were very simple games, and they couldn't really be compared to the very complex AAA studio games that were being published at the time. So I think that's the common misconception. Also, Anita Sarkeesian, people said she wasn't a true gamer. People got accused of gatekeeping for that. But then at the same time, she was also very dishonest in her videos, which, side note, but whatever. Um, but in the end, I think, of course, does gatekeeping exist? Yes, both the good and bad kind. And when I say the good kind, I, of course, mean this sentence right here that protect the industrial and cultural sense of it, like so it doesn't become something else entirely. But there's also, of course, bad gatekeeping, and I think the majority of bad gatekeeping, it's a very small minority of fandom, but they exist, and they are people who are just very sad and miserable, and they can't like the only thing they have left in this world is this fandom. Like that's what really keeps them together, and therefore they're very overprotective about it and they don't want to let anyone else in. And that's like my honest opinion about it. I do think though that it's really nice to see that there's an article that actually isn't on the, because it's so common that we hear people just nagging about gatekeeping and how it's such a huge problem. I don't think it's a huge problem. Honestly, I might be totally wrong on that, but I have not encountered enough cases, and I'm very active in fandoms and stuff. But if you have other examples, please comment them down below. I'm more than open to discussion. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, and as always, have a good one. Bye.